Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on the Tesla and Tesla innovations. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. Rob Enderle, Mr. David Smith, and Jerry. Thank you for joining today's sessions. Uh, my first questions to Mr. Rob Enderle. Uh, how is Tesla redefining the traditional automotive industry through its innovation in electric vehicles, technology, and autonomous driving?
Well, Tesla actually isn't a leader in autonomous driving. They're a leader in bringing it to market, but not a leader in the underlying technology. They now significantly lag companies like BYD in China. BYD has, of course, introduced autonomous driving throughout their entire line, all the way down to $15,000 cars, which currently isn't viable in the West. The technology is too expensive. Tesla did wake up the market about a decade ago, a little over a decade ago, by moving aggressively to EVs, being an EV pure play, and by kind of approaching the EV market more as a technology vendor than an automotive vendor. They were able to bring technology to market more quickly than their gas counterparts, and the end result is for the last, well, pretty much since they launched, the Tesla has been the volume leader and revenue leader in the EV market, and certainly the company's valuation has benefited for that over time. Recently, however, China has taken a significant page out of Tesla's book, forming a large number of EV startups, heavily funded by the government initially to get them to critical mass. They're much more aggressive in terms of technology. The Chinese EVs, particularly again those from BYD, can do things like turn on their own access. You can bring the front wheels into a parking space and have the rear wheels drive the rear of the car in, without moving the automobile forward. And they even have trucks that do what Tesla promised to do with the Cybertruck, and they're amphibious. They can, in a heavy flood, they don't sink. They float and can proceed through the water. All advances that Tesla hasn't been able to match. The real downfall of Tesla really had less to do with the technology and more to do with Elon Musk's behavior in the U.S. government, which caused Teslas to be widely boycotted. And currently, Tesla is even behind Volkswagen in terms of EV sales in Europe, and BYD has outsold them, I think, for the last 3 to 6 months. The real interesting innovation, of course, with Tesla was more along the lines of how they designed the body of the car as a single unit. That made it far less expensive to build the automobiles, offsetting the initial excessive cost of the electrical vehicle and the resulting infrastructure. However, it's made the cars very hard to repair, and even today, cars that are built like Teslas, if they get into an accident, it doesn't take much to total the car out because they're so very expensive to repair, and their lack of cooperation with body shops have really soured a lot of existing buyers on the company as well. But overall, with regard to technology, the reason that they came into view with regard to autonomous driving is they were the first to aggressively put it on the market and talk to people using the term autopilot as the brand, or as the feature name. And the end result is we had a lot of people doing stupid stuff like getting into the back seat and having the car drive itself, or sleeping while the car was driving. The technology was presented as a level 3 or level 4 technology when it was really only a decent but not best of class level 2 plus system. And you might recall that initially, when they had the driver get decapitated by driving underneath a trailer, Musk was against optical technology because it couldn't identify things that LiDAR and radar could. But cost concerns have driven Tesla solidly to optical technology today, and the Tesla vehicles lack the LiDAR, radar, sonar technologies that other cars have that allow those cars to perform better in low light and obscured light conditions like snow, rain, sleet, etc. So right now, while Tesla presents as being the most advanced simply because they're the most visible with autonomous driving, they lag a number of other manufacturers, mostly those in China. Though I should point out that even GM for a time had a better, according to Consumer Reports, had better performance with their autonomous driving technology than Tesla. I think with Tesla, the problem was more over-promising and under-delivering than necessarily a failure with the technology. But the result has been a large number of accidents and a significant amount of loss of life, which I think has soured the world on the technology to a certain degree and created barriers to adoption that otherwise wouldn't exist. It's a shame because I was involved in some of the initial analysis with regard to autonomous driving, particularly the stuff that the insurance companies did, which suggested that autonomous driving could drop the accident rate, particularly the fatal accident rate, by better than 95%. And the reason that this all came into play is because the insurance companies were a little bit worried that they're going to go out of business because with such extreme savings in terms of accident rates, the premiums would have to come down dramatically. And of course, insurance companies make their profits as a percentage of those premiums. So if the premiums drop, so does their revenues. But the end result has been is this so far as this has come out, those significant drops in accident rates, while visible, have been offset by the fact that any accident with an autonomous vehicle gets an inordinate amount of news coverage, again, making people not trust the technology and having it lag what otherwise might be its potential. So currently where we are is we're not really at anywhere close to level 5 autonomous technology, which is really the end game where you don't have to drive the cars at all. We do have some level 3 cars on the road at the very high end in the Western world. And as I mentioned, BYD is rolling it across their entire line, even down to their economy vehicles in China. China is being far more aggressive with this technology, which is basically more performant there as well, as they've been able to regulate it. One of the underlying technologies that's allowing this to advance more quickly at the moment is simulation, with NVIDIA's offering being the one that has led the market. And it allows manufacturers to do autonomous training in hours in what otherwise might take years. And so the result has been these systems being able to advance much more quickly than they otherwise would. And projections that had some of this stuff not appearing until mid 2030s now showcase we should have significant advancements in the next 5 to 10 years. Vastly exceeding the expectations of 2035 being really the time frame when the technology would become viable. So a lot of advancements. Tesla of late has been more of a problem than a help with regard to this technology, but their leadership initially was, I think, largely due to an over promotion and underperformance, and the end result has been an unfortunate adverse reaction to the technology and kind of scaring buyers away from it. So those are my opening remarks and a response to the question.
Thank you. Thank you. My next question for Mr. David Smith. What are the major risks Tesla faces in maintaining its leadership in the global EV market and rising competition from legacy automakers and the new entrants?
Well, Dr. Sharif, thank you for having me on the program. I agree with most of what Rob has said. There's a lot of interesting differences there, particularly if you look at Tesla versus the Chinese competition. Tesla's original mission is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. So it's much more than just electric vehicles. It's really about redefining the transportation systems, the energy systems, the AI that goes with it. And you begin to see that. And in Tesla, you often hear the unplugged metaphor, disconnecting from fossil fuels, from centralized grids, from human-driven vehicles, embracing autonomy, decentralization, intelligence. And that goes into the core of your question today around these different ones. And if I begin to look at your question and begin to understand the elements of it, the innovations are very important there, and how those are going to be used, how they're going to come back and be put into place, and how it begins to align everything together as we work. You begin to see innovations in batteries, and not just for the EVs, but for homes and other things like that in communities. And Tesla has achieved significant progress in battery technology. particularly with some of their high energy density cells that they've done lately. And they have a development of what they're calling the 4680 cell, which is really very interesting because it's not only in longer driving time, more capacity, but also it's faster charging time. And it's looking at how to improve the efficiency of the battery and the battery process. And so you see that coming. You see Tesla versus many of the other automobile manufacturers uh, innovating in manufacturing. Tesla uses what they call large scale casting. They call it gigapress technology, which allows them to, for the production of the major vehicle components, they do it as a single piece, as opposed to a lot of pieces put together. It reduces complexity, it reduces weight, while in cost, while it increases durability, unless you're in an accident. And then if those are damaged, the prices are much, much higher as you begin to look at. But what this approach does, it kind of mirrors what we see in consumer electronics, where we see the seamless construction begin to be put in place there. And this is really a very big departure from the traditional automobile assembly methods. We're seeing Tesla making innovations in the conventional electric vehicle motors, such as the switch reluctance motor, which eliminates the need for rare earth materials and reduces cost and more efficiency. One of the reasons I think Tesla did this is they tried to begin to look at how to address supply chain vulnerabilities because rare earth materials are very difficult to source today, particularly with the geopolitical climate we're in today. Uh, and you begin to see that. They also, by making this change to this SRM motor, they're trying to make more affordable electric vehicles. Another big change innovation at Tesla is they were one of the pioneers in software-defined vehicles. The Tesla vehicles are designed as digital platforms. They receive regular over-the-air software updates that enhance performance, add new features, and improve the safety capabilities. And you just simply don't see this in the traditional manufacturing processes you have there. A couple of others, and Rob's mentioned some of these, is Tesla's full self-driving, which is, I believe, not as advanced as some of the others, but it's still pretty amazing when you get into it because it leverages advanced artificial intelligence. It leverages neural networks and a suite of sensors. Um, I agree with Rob. I wish they had had LiDAR and some of the others in there because it's primarily cameras, ultrasonic sensors, and others. Uh, and it primarily focuses on the cameras to process visual data there. But the other things they're doing is they are taking the concept of group learning and applying it to their vehicles. They have what they call fleet learning that continuously gathers data from a fleet to refine and improve its autonomous systems. And they have real time feedback loops in this, which help them with rapid development and moving forward. Um, they also have, and it's beginning to be deployed here where I live in Austin, Texas. They have a robo taxi vision. We have way more autonomous taxis here, but Tesla is now launching their own version of the Cybercab here, which is a fully autonomous two-seat vehicle with wireless charging and automatic cleaning. So after every person who is in it, the robo taxi will begin to really go back and clean itself and make it available. So kind of what I see is Tesla was a leader in redefining the automobile industry through advanced battery, advanced motor technology, software-driven vehicle architecture, and a pretty bold vision. But I also agree with Rob with his comments that what we're seeing out of China, particularly with the massive amount of government investments helping there, we're seeing very not just competitive, but more advanced technologies coming out of China at this time, Dr. Sharif.
Thank you. Thank you. This is excellent discussions, and I want to give thanks to all of our speakers. I think already Jiri joined, Mr. Allen also joins, and we have our very, very special guest, a world famous scientist, Dr. Adrian David Chioc. Me and Adrian David Chioc, we are taking the initiative of Nikola Tesla Graduate School, and all of our innovations will happen through this Nikola Tesla Graduate School. This is very, very important country like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and hopefully all of you will join in our Nikola Tesla Graduate School as an faculty, as a scientist, and hopefully you can innovate a lot of interesting things. I know Jiri is waiting, Alan is waiting, but I want to give chance Professor Adrian David Chiox. He win my hearts with all of his great innovations. So Professor Adrian David Chiox, what you want to share about uh, your innovations of Nikola Tesla graduate schools? What we can do, how our friends and colleagues can join in our team and make progress. Professor Adrian, can you hear me? Professor Adrian, I cannot hear you. I think he has. Professor Adrian, I cannot hear you. Can you join again? It's you muted. Okay, Mr. Allen, I think he will join. Mr. Allen, what you want to discuss about Nikola Tesla innovations, and then I come to Jay.
Well, thank you for inviting me amongst this distinguished panel, and hello to fellow Texan David Smith. There, I'm in Fort Worth. There's one thing that I think it's probably. I don't want to say something so basic as to be insulting to the panelists, but I think there's a fact that we need to establish that I say this, before I even get to the fact, because I encounter this so often in the public sphere, and that's that people think that electricity is an energy source. Like we can run cars off fuel or we can run cars off electricity. We really don't run cars off electricity. I mean, we still are burning diesel fuel to generate the electricity. Electricity is just the conduit of how the energy gets to the vehicle. So it's not like somehow because we're using electricity, it's clean. We're still generating electricity. And I think that it's such a basic phenomenon, but it seems to be so misunderstood. Electricity is not just a clean source. It's produced by something else, whether that's sun on water to make steam or photovoltaic cells, etc. So just let's get that out of the way. But I think that's important for the public. In America, maybe other countries have a more educated public, but Americans still don't seem to get that. It's been a few years in the public discussion. And the second, to Rob's point and to David's point, is that me personally, I think the technology is not the issue, right? It's not about whether we'll have the technology by 2035. I mean, I think theoretically we could have the technology this year if, and again, big if here, if our nation states, our national governments, and our people were willing to, in democracies and our dictators around the globe, if they were willing to transition to a new form of economics today, we could be there by this time next year. This, like somebody mentioned, the insurance companies thinking, oh, we're going to lose a lot of money on car wrecks, and I mean, that's all very true, right? There are real stakeholders within our geopolitical economic system that don't benefit from the efficiencies of an electric car. Ultimately, humanity would benefit from those technological innovations that come along with electric cars, whether that's self-driving, autonomy to clean up traffic, or to make traffic safer, or to move goods more effectively, and even the spillover things into other designs. I think we've got to be ready for that, and part of the again, back to Elon Musk being a great proponent for the car industry and reshaping the way we use energy in this country and around the globe, and developing those things, all amazing technological innovations that he has promoted. But again, once he got into government and said, what we really need to do is reorganize government, he lost a lot of his popularity by slashing other programs people like, and literally demonstrated with a chainsaw. We're going to chainsaw through these bureaucracies to restructure government. Scalpel. A health analogy might have been better, right? Like, let's use a scalpel to take out what's wrong and pour in some vitamins where we want it to done right. But in any case, it's very much global. We see a global restructuring of economics and governmental systems presently. Whether they're being restructured in a way that will help us adopt a technology that's much more effective at distributing energy, that's to be seen. And I think to a large degree, this is a question of, do we want centralized control or democracy? And I think that is intrinsic in our energy system. That question is intrinsic in our energy systems. And it goes along with the same idea of scale. At what scale do we want centralization? Like city government, county government. I mean, clearly a power plant like the nuclear power plant we have here right outside of Fort Worth in Comanche Peak. I mean, it has a limited range, but it definitely has a strong effect on the energy and energy prices here locally. And all of that technology is great. And I think it's the human systems and the humans that really need to analyze what they're doing and step forward. And in that step forward, that's my last point. I think there's an opportunity for some places around the globe to leapfrog hazardous technology and poor systems, or I mean, at the time, people are always looking for the best solution at the time, and then that changes over time. So we find new solutions. And these are all sort of fundamental things. I mean, clearly, electricity is generated by some other energy form, and the issue is not technology; it's popular adoption of technology. And then on this last note, though, this leapfrog or to leapfrog or not to leapfrog, I think that's an important question, right? I don't know that it's the question, but it's an important question. And I want to give a quick example of an interview. I heard a gentleman, and he's the cost accountant for the United Nations, or he was. That was his career, and then he retired and went on the radio podcast. Anyhow, he talked about calculating these. They have a huge budget and they do giant projects. And one of the questions, or the interviewer said, well, it must be nice to be able to to have that kind of influence to say, oh, you guys want to do this grandiose thing, but hey, here's here's the budget realities. And he said, oh, if only it were so. He says, typically the programs that are implemented for political and strategic and international cooperation reasons, and are quite often financial boondoggles in spite of all that. And his example, and it's the example I want to use, was the U.S. made a proposal to electrify. They were going to put up, I think it was $100 million to electrify a portion of Africa, and they looked to the UN to say, hey, where do we need to put in do solar, distributed, decentralized solar power system, and for for that cost, that 100 million, I forget, it was maybe 3 cities within one country that could be improved, and for the same amount of money, same, oh, wow, welcome back. For the same amount of money, the entire sub-Saharan Africa could be improved using ordinary energy generation systems, but basically oil generated energy systems. And so this idea of leapfrogging might be not so much based on the technology, but the availability. And his argument, and I really see where he's coming from, is that it's better for a wealthy nation like the U.S. or European countries to make that transition to like solar or nuclear, and then provide those the oil-based solutions to other countries. So, and I would like to hear. We have people from other countries, I think, besides Texas. So, David and I can give a new perspective on this. But the because it is cheaper. I mean, that's why we did it to begin with. That was the cheap way, but at the time it was the only way. It's still the cheapest way, but there are ramifications. So anyway, this idea to leapfrog or not to leapfrog is another, and it's a human factor. Those are my 3 opening remarks. So which I just
Thank you.
bring it on
Thank
to
you.
basic science. Yeah.
Thank you. Professor Adrian, can you hear me? Professor Adrian, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Do you want to? Oh, yeah.
Yes. Sorry about that. I think this many apps are blocked in China, so you need to use VPN to get through. So I'm behind the Great Firewall in China here, and I live in Nanjing, China, and there's many people, many Teslas are in the streets here in China. They have a very big factory nearby in Shanghai, but Tesla's fallen behind because China can make very, very good electric cars for unbelievable cheap price. In fact, I think the cheapest car now is made by BYD, and it's about $7,000 US, which is incredibly cheap. And so you can understand why President Trump has put I think it's now 145% tariff, because otherwise every car manufacturer in the US will be wiped out. But I've actually seen these cars, $7,000, $10,000, $15,000. This is brand new, from a dealer, from an actual Fisher's dealership, brand new, and incredible cars that they make, and so I don't know how they make them so cheap, honestly speaking. So Tesla used to have a much bigger part of the market, but now they only have the just the very high end market in China, because the cars are very expensive compared to the local ones. And one more thing I want to say is the Chinese government has I think mandated that every gas station must have electric chargers. So it's the kind of thing that you can't do in the USA, because the government couldn't mandate that because US is a democratic country. But in China, of course, the government is a totalitarian government. So they've mandated that every single gas station must have electric chargers. So that's why that's the two reasons why uh, in China now much more, I think about 60-70% of vehicles that are bought, the new ones, are electric. One reason is it's very cheap, and two is you can charge it literally anywhere. You don't have to worry about running out of power. And the charging time has got unbelievably short. I think now it's about 5 minutes. You can charge your car within 5 minutes now.
Thank you. Didi, can you hear me? Do you want?
Yes, I can. Hello,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah. Can you add some point on Nikola
Yes,
Tesla?
yes, I would like to first of all greet everybody from the Czech Republic. As you may know, in Europe, the Second World War ended today. In the Czech Republic, the Plzeň has been liberated by USA. Thank you very much, guys. And the Prague has been liberated by Soviet Union. So it has been divided. So this is just today I went for a parade and there were automobiles, and those automobiles were old American Jeeps from the military. And since I was small, I liked cars very much. And I today I prepared a small presentation about the Tesla, but I see that you are guys great in what you talking about, so I don't want to go so much deeper into that because all has been said already. So I just would like to say that for me, important is now agriculture, because I studied agriculture at the university. I studied tractors. This was my specialty. So I think today is very important also agriculture. So looking at the future of automobiles in the agriculture sphere is very important, for example, in Africa and Asia and other parts, because agriculture brings food to us. So this is the first thing which I would like to say. Second thing, also we should think about the waste, as has been said by some of you guys before, about the energies. Also, we must think about the waste and the wasteless world. This is also important for me. These are the things which I'm interested in, and I'm looking. This batteries has been mentioned by I think David. This is clear. This. New models of the Tesla, they are upcoming models like Cybertruck or Tesla Semi has been mentioned. Also, battery technologies has been mentioned. Autonomous full self-driving FSD has been mentioned. Sustainability goals, these are clear. Global expansion, I would like to just say one sentence that gigafactories in Berlin and Texas, this has been mentioned also by people speaking before me. In EV markets, challenges in the form of or in the person of Elon Musk. Yeah, by the way, he's a remarkable person. However, as has been mentioned before, there are some challenges there as well. Yes, basically, this is. I will not speak too long. I will give space to others because you are really masters in your field. So I would like to listen more today because I like what I'm hearing. So thank you very much, guys, and I give space over to Sharif again.
Thank you. Mr. Rob, my next question for you. What are the ethical and regulatory implications of Tesla push for full self-driving technology, and how might they affect the company global expansions, or what's your thought?
Well, right now, the Tesla's ethics have had an adverse impact on autonomous driving. Largely, they made a number of initial mistakes. One I mentioned earlier, they overpromised and underdelivered. The technology they delivered was a level 2+ technology, and they promoted it as if it was a level 3 or 4. Even the name of the offering, autopilot, implied you could just hit a button and the car could drive itself. And ironically, here in the United States, we had an old joke that goes back to my childhood, and I'm over 70, so that's a long while ago, about a guy that came in from Europe and rented a motorhome that had cruise control. And he'd never seen cruise control before, and the sales guy said, "Well, it's kind of like an airplane's autopilot," which was sort of true at the time, because back then autopilots were mostly a throttle maintenance thing, and then you could tie it to the compass and create direction. And so the guy got in the truck and said, "Hey, I need a cup of coffee." Put on cruise control and went back to the back of the truck and to make his coffee. And of course, that ended really badly because there was nothing guiding the vehicle and the throttle was set. So using that as an example, you probably would never name an underperforming autonomous driving function autopilot because it was going to lead to people doing bad things, much like the joke. And that's exactly what we got. We got people that were taking their hands off the wheel, taking naps, reading books, watching videos, and actually some of them getting in the back seat and letting the car drive itself. And most of the big accidents were the result of people doing those things, and a number of them were resulted in loss of life. And when you have loss of life and a lot of coverage on loss of life when a vehicle crashes, then people get scared of the technology. They don't trust it. And Intel did a study about a decade ago on autonomous driving, and they found out something kind of interesting, which was people did better with autonomous driving if there was no steering wheel, which sounds kind of weird. But the reason is they felt that they always had to be ready to take control of the car if the autonomous driving function failed, and they didn't want that responsibility. Without the steering wheel, they just, hey, if something happens, it happens, but they didn't have the constant tension of having to be constantly ready to drive the car, which is where the technology is right now. Right now, the technology is a point where you kind of have to be always ready to take control of the car. What was interesting, and some of the initial thoughts of autonomous driving were that what would happen if the computer failed to function was it would immediately pass control of the car back to the driver. But now think of this. You've got a computer processing at a far higher rate than humans can, with sensors that surround the car, looking in all directions at any obstacle that's upcoming. And then suddenly, and of course, in that particular case, the person doesn't have their hands on the wheel. They are napping, reading a book, watching a movie. And suddenly the car hits ice. It has a malfunction. And the human has a fraction of a second to assess the problem, take control of the car, and do what the autonomous driving system couldn't do. And the autonomous driving system would almost always be more performant than the driver would be, which means you get about 2 seconds of screaming and then a large crash. And so they've since determined that what we really need to do is have redundant systems. So if the system fails, a redundant autonomous driving system takes over, or at worst, the car immediately brakes, goes to the side of the road and stops. Again, taking into account the limitations of what humans can do at the snap of a finger. We're just not wired to suddenly jump in on a problem that a computer's having trouble with and taking control and doing something intelligent. And as I say, the end result would pretty much be screaming. So coming around to how you needed to develop this stuff and bring it forward is important. Also, we've moved away from using mostly on-road training. We still do on-road training. I think David pointed out that Tesla has each car's training itself and cooperating, though our vehicle-to-vehicle communications has not progressed like a lot of us thought they would. The belief is with vehicle-to-vehicle communications, what you'd have is the first vehicle in a line would see a problem, would communicate back what that problem was, and the subsequent vehicles could avoid whatever that problem was. And recognize when a car is ballistic, autonomous driving isn't going to help you out any more than human driving will. What I mean here is, say the car suddenly hits black ice, the autonomous driving system hasn't seen it because it's not visual. And the car is now ballistic. The control surfaces are no longer functional. While the autonomous driving system will not screw up, in other words, it will follow base practices in terms of trying to steer into the skid and do all the rest of the stuff. The car is basically ballistic. You're not going to be able to stop it, particularly if it's on a hill. And so that took us to what was called the trolley problem for autonomous cars, which is if an autonomous car is rolling towards a school bus and the kids are out in the street, and it has a choice between hitting the school bus, damaging itself, and possibly injuring the driver, or hitting the kids, which are a much softer target. What is the autonomous car going to do? Well, what was interesting about the problem is it further scared people away from autonomous cars because they started viewing them as death vehicles. Kind of a Mad Max thing, which are going to plow through, groups of kids. what folks forget is one of the precepts of the autonomous car is that it always drives within its functional capability. So if you're coming up on a school zone, unlike a human driver, it's not driving 60 to get to work quickly. It drops to the 20 miles per hour. And if it can't see around a corner, it slows until its sensors can see around the corner. In riding one in Israel a little over 2 years ago, what I found happened is that the autonomous car is it's like a full autonomous car. It's kind of like driving in a car with somebody that's paranoid all the time. If a car just moved a little bit on the side, the car would jog. If the autonomous car wanted to change its position in the lane, not change lanes, change position in the lane, it would turn on its turn signal, which kind of freaked out drivers all around it. And it drove very conservatively. And if you've ever been to Israel, you'll know that drivers in Israel do not drive conservatively. They drive like they're in F1 competition with bumper cars. And so the drivers around us, I mean, I was convinced we were going to die, not from an accident, but for one of the drivers getting out and shooting us. I've never seen so many pissed off people driving by. I got one finger salutes more continuously than I've ever gotten before, and none of us were driving the car. So that's the issue is, of course, is that the autonomous car will almost always drive within its sensor range. And so the chance that it would come up on a school bus, blind corner, too fast, and have to make a choice between the kids in the bus is almost non-existent. It would always be able to stop because it's not driving like a human, and it's not driving too fast. It's not under the influence, and it's not looking at its smartphone. It's driving aggressively safely. Safely aggressively would be the right way to say that. So the end result is, if you're in the car and you're late for a meeting, there's a good chance you're going to override those safety features and as a result put everybody at risk. But if you let the car just do its thing, then it's going to be much better. The other advantage with regard to autonomous cars and technology is, unlike us, where when we have an appointment coming up, we might wait to the last minute to leave, and then we'll hit traffic or whatever that'll slow us down. The autonomous car has the ability to look at traffic patterns around it. The cities are becoming increasingly sensor heavy, and the end result is it's going to know that there are problems in transport. In theory, your smartphone is going to alert you that you're going to need to leave earlier because of those transport problems, and it will attempt to reroute around those transport problems, similar in ways to what the way Waze operates when it's operating properly. Of course, we all know that Waze has had issues in the past. We've had people that got navigated into areas where cars shouldn't be, and also navigated in areas where people shouldn't be driving, which has resulted in accidents and death. But in general, when the technology is working properly, it does route around problem areas, and it does get you to your destination much more quickly. So with a combination of the proper marketing, making sure that people are aware of both where the technology is and what it's capable of, so they aren't relying on the technology to a degree where the technology is not performant, then autonomous driving can work very well. And do recognize there are advancements in processing power right now are coming at an incredibly rapid pace. The capabilities in AI, which we discussed on this show before, have advanced in the last 2 years far faster than I'd argue they advanced in the previous decade. So our capabilities with regard to what we can put in the car have advanced. And where we now look, though, isn't to Tesla for these advancements, but we look to car companies like BYD, which has been able not only to show more performant technology, but to bring the cost down. So it's not a massive uptick in the automobile. It's more in line with cruise control in terms of applied cost, and less in line with putting a supercomputer in your automobile, which really made some of these autonomous systems and the first level 3 systems only appear in the most expensive cars, or the high-end Mercedes, for instance. They came to market with this capability first, but BYD has been able to drive it down, as I mentioned before, into $15,000 price ranges, which has been really interesting to watch. But we're still at the very beginning of this, and so in the end, I expect at the end of 5 years, we're going to look back and wonder how people got along without this stuff, assuming, of course, that we have a large enough number of people that trust it enough to actually use it on the road.
Thank you. Mr. David Smith, what do you want to discuss about these issues?
Well, Dr. Sharif, I agree with everything I'm hearing the other panelists say. I would like to say a couple of things, though, as we've focused mainly on the car itself, but the subsystems around it are very, very important. One of the things we're doing, uh, and Alan, I don't know if you know this, in Central Texas, we're taking our 130 toll road and we're turning it into an advanced interconnected uh, test bed. When it was built, and the company I was CEO of at the time, we provided a lot of the IT services and people for this. It has lined the entire distance from north of Austin to San Antonio with fiber optics is an integral part of that and heavily censored. In fact, it has the highest speed limit of any road in the United States because of some of the considerations the design. So infrastructure is a very important part of what we can see when we go to where the future of particularly autonomous vehicles is, because you're going to see it, and it actually sets the groundwork for not just the convoy type of intelligence that Rob talked about earlier, but for more situational awareness, similar to what you see in the military, in the intelligence community. And I think that's going to be a thing that is going to dramatically add to the advancements there. Also, we begin to see the advancements we see in AI as applied to these in material science, particularly around the battery technologies and other like that, is going to be very important as we see where this heads. So again, it's not just the vehicle, but it's all these what I call auxiliary industries that are going to come into play there. Uh, with You also have something called a lead lag relationship, and I was involved, as some of you know, with some of the roadmaps and plans and things in the U.S. intelligence community and in DoD. And there's about a 15-year lead lag relationship between what is classified in worlds like that into what you see in the commercial sector. And particularly with autonomous vehicles, though, and we're seeing that compressed to a shorter period of time. AI, Rob, I agree with you. AI has progressed so rapidly, but there's still, I think, probably that 15-year lead lag, even on artificial intelligence, between what is commercially available and what is not commercially available. So we're seeing that come in place. But it's the other thing I think that we have to deal with the innovations around EVs, Teslas, and others, is the human factor side. I love Rob describing his action when he was in one in Israel. And you see that here. Austin has been a test bed for autonomous vehicles for 4 or 5 manufacturers now. And you see the human factors just being played out so well. Uh, Austin's a little crazy at times, and there's groups of people here who will purposely test autonomous vehicles, who will purposely try to walk out in front of it to see what happens. And so I guess it's a pretty good test bed so you can do the unexpected. But that whole human factor side, the whole understanding the dynamics, and in talking to one of my friends who's a Tesla engineer on the autonomous side, he said that one of their biggest challenges is they've got, like Rob talked about earlier, the best practices down pat, and you see that. But it's understanding what happens when you have, this is going to sound weird. They think they understand the human driver pretty well. But what the algorithms for autonomous vehicles do, they don't understand the other autonomous vehicles well. And we've seen that. We've seen places here in Austin where you've seen 3 autonomous vehicles come to the same intersection, and they stop because none of them will take the human initiative to go forward with it, and they just stop and wait for a human intervention to come in and solve that problem. You've seen it in San Francisco. You've seen others where the autonomous vehicles have just shut down in the middle of intersections. And so that human element, that human factor, is one of the innovations that have to go back into it. The technologies are there. And I think as we see more going back to some of the other models, if you look at Tesla with his data centers, they're almost all GPU driven, which is great for machine learning. But when you actually begin to look at the application of the machine learning, you have to look at other technologies. I think you have to look at neural nets. One of my favorite right now is a quantum effects neural network chip, where you can get some of the higher processing speeds, but you get the multi-threading and things of a neural network. One of the forecasts I did decades ago was for biological computing. And I think as you begin to put more of biological computing married with all these other advanced computing approaches, it's going to help us do a better job of enhancing what a autonomous driving can be. And particularly as we learn not just from the roads, but as we begin to understand more of the human psyche and put those human factors into that future, Dr. Sharif. So that's kind of my comments there.
Thank you. Professor Adrian. Professor Adrian, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you want to add as the closing remarks?
Oh, thank you very much. A very good discussion, and so I believe that the world of electric vehicles, you basically have two maybe three markets: the US, you got Europe, and you got China. And so I think it's good to keep an eye on the developments in those three markets. And although Tesla's number one in USA, but China's making great leaps and bounds in electric vehicle technology. Or also European companies are also building their electric vehicles. So I think I think that there's going to be great advancement very soon, and I think we're going to be soon at the point where um, the AI will be better driver than humans. So we're not there yet, but I think we can all agree that sooner or later we're going to get there, where actually the AI is better than human and can react faster to any kind of situation. And I think eventually, within our lifetimes,
Hello, Professor Adrian. I think he has internet issues. Mr. Allen.
Yeah, he's frozen.
Yeah. What you add as a closing remarks for today's session, Mr. Allen?
Oh, I think he's absolutely right on the development of the technology and how it's moving forward. I'd also just like to brag for a moment that the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex has its own test bed for autonomous trucking, and local airport, Alliance Airport, non-international airport. It's primarily for cargo. It has developed about a mile of road that is between the cargo transfer point, let's say, of regular commercial traffic for the airport, and where that cargo gets loaded on the planes and they've got this singular stretch of road for autonomous delivery trucks. So everything from box truck size to 18-wheeler size is moving, or has started to move. The smaller ones have started to move on that road to deliver traffic. So they literally take it off of a big gas-powered 18-wheeler. They load it onto the electric 18-wheeler that's self-driving, and then they take it to the plane to be offloaded. And it is purely just a test bed for that autonomous system. It's pretty fascinating. Perhaps in the future I'll get out there and get some video and share that with you. That might be.
Yeah, thank you. Jerry, what do you want to add?
Yes, I will just add one very brief. I will be very brief, I promise. Maybe all of you know the car brand Škoda. However, I would like to mention very briefly the car brand Tatra, which not only competes in Paris-Dakar rally, but also Zygmunt and Hanzelka. Before 100 years, they traveled in this special-made car around the whole world. They traveled all the continents in the Tatra car, which was tailored just for them. So I just wanted to say these manufacturers come from my country, so I'm proud of it. That's why I talk about it. Thank you, guys. I must run back to the Plzeň Liberation by US celebrations. Today I'm running, and nice to meet you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. David Smith, what's your closing remarks?
Dr. Sharif, always loved being part of your programs. Today was a good freehand discussion between all of us. A lot of excellent points were made today. But what it underscores to me is that the pace of technology advancements is moving very rapidly, and it has been. One of the underlying things that we really didn't talk about today is data. And you cannot have good AI without good data. I mean, AI is not without good data is on very soft quicksand, and you don't do it. So the data is a very, very important part of this. And the amount of data is doubling every 2 years. But if I look at a sensor data, it is on a faster curve than even that. And sensor data is part of what drives autonomous driving. It's part of what drives robotics. It's what drives many of the advanced things we're looking at. And so data needs to be part of these discussions going further, as well as we begin to look at, like I said, material science before. It's not just material science to construct batteries, but it's material science as we look at the other components of this ecosystem. And I love Jerry's comment that in their electric charging stations are part of every gas station. That would be very interesting to implement here. Around where I live, because Tesla's headquarters here, we have a lot of charging stations popping up, but they're all standalone. And I will go there and I'll see people stay in their car reading books for half an hour. And I love the fact that they're reading, but you begin to see the fact that there's other things you can do and things like that. So there's a lot of other pieces to this, but Dr. Sharif, I think you've done an excellent job of beginning to surface this. And I'm sure that your audience is going to have a lot of other comments in their own mind after they think about this when it's over. So thank you again for letting me be part of it.
Thank you. Mr. Rob, what's your closing remarks?
Well, autonomous driving, which largely only appears in electric vehicles at the moment, and part of the reason for that is because the powertrain electric vehicles are almost infinitely variable, and that really allows the autonomous system to do far more, both quickly and efficiently when applied to autonomous driving. We do have autonomous trucks on the road now. Not as many as we will have in a couple of years, but it does address, particularly with long-haul trucking, a significant driver shortage that existed prior to the tariff, pretty much killing a lot of U.S. business. But that's a whole different topic for a different time. It on paper, once it matures and once we get to a critical mass of autonomous vehicles, the amount of accidents we will have and death, unfortunate death we will have, particularly death from distracted, impaired, and drivers that are abusing substances will drop dramatically because autonomous vehicles don't do that. And so the level of protection will go up. We should be able to reduce the weight of the automobile significantly because we won't need a lot of the protective systems that currently exist in the vehicles, anticipating that they're going to get in accidents. And overall gas usage will drop. Fossil fuel will drop, regardless of how the energy is generated. An autonomous driven vehicle is going to be much more efficient. You're not going to be speeding up and slowing down. They're not going to be racing. They're not going to be driving ultra fast. They'll be driving within the performance envelope. And the interesting thing about EVs over gas cars is EVs get relatively more efficient the slower they go. Where gas cars, the way they're geared, actually are more efficient to whatever their optimal gear point is, which is often at freeway speeds before air friction takes that advantage away, around 55 miles per hour, which was the argument for the speed limit at 55 a few years back. It was the most efficient speed for gas-powered vehicles. EVs remain or retain efficiency to much lower speeds just because of their nature. And because even when stop and go traffic, the EV motivation stops and goes. We do have systems in gas vehicles that allow the gas vehicles to basically suspend their function while the car is stopped, but that tends to drive drivers nuts. And I know one of the first vehicles that I had that had this, which was rented out as part of a program, a lot of the folks said that thought the car was broken because the engine would stop every time they came to a stop light, but that was what it was designed to do. So we get a lot of benefits with autonomous driving, and one of them being productivity. Today, we're really not supposed to be talking on the phone or doing business while we're driving, though people do, and it results in accidents. With an autonomous vehicle, you can pretty much do whatever you want while the car's moving. It's like you're in a bus. And so you can remain productive. And there's an argument saying that we might actually have cars might become mobile living rooms, mobile offices, whatever. But you'll be able to do a lot of other things while the car is driving. And that, whether that's entertainment to keep you from just being bored to tears in traffic, or actually doing real work, you'll have that particular option. So it's going to change a lot of the dynamic with regard to using vehicles. And one of the dynamics is vehicle ownership. Once you get to autonomous vehicles, you start to build the argument that why you need to own one. I mean, basically they become horizontal elevators, and not a lot of people own elevators. So very wealthy may that live in high rises, but for the rest of us, we wouldn't own an elevator. It would be a shared resource. And automobiles right now are probably one of the most underutilized technologies we own. Most of the time they sit in parking lots, they sit in garages. You've got this major investment in a piece of technology, and it's really not doing much except when you're driving. And for a lot of us, we're only driving the thing, 5%, 3% of the period of time we own it. And so that's not very efficient. But if you get to an Uber driver's vehicle, that's run 85, 90% of the time that they own it. They're driving, particularly if multiple drivers are sharing the same vehicle. And so with an autonomous vehicle, you could run it 24/7. Yeah, it would have to come down for maintenance and charging. And as was mentioned before, BYD now has got the 20 to 80 mile per hour range thing down to about 5 minutes. Though that puts a lot of stress on the battery system. I should point out, by the way, since we didn't discuss this, one of the reasons BYD is doing so much better than Tesla is they started off as a battery company, and batteries are the most expensive part of an EV right now. I'll give you an example. On my old Jaguar I-Pace, a tow truck driver damaged my battery. The car cost $102,000 new. The cost to replace that battery, that now warped battery, was $110,000. So actually more than the initial purchase price of the car. And of course, by that time, the car had depreciated down to about $48,000, meaning the car was totaled out for the loss of the battery. Granted, that included containment, not just the batteries themselves, but it just showcases how big a component of the cost of batteries can be. To replace a Tesla battery, I believe it's still upwards of 20 grand, unless it's subsidized. And so that's still a much more expensive than a motor, than than most of the propulsion system on a gas car. So getting the battery cost down was really the critical path to getting EVs far more affordable. And one of the reasons why they weren't that way is we killed off EVs in the 1920s. Well, they're pretty much gone by the 1930s. Even though before then, the EVs were the more popular technology, mostly with housewives who drove EVs to and from the store, and found that maintaining gasoline, or back then it was before gas stations were really a thing. People had to buy gas or put in their own gas pumps at their house, or go down to the drugstore and actually buy gas over the counter, which was kind of painful. But in an EV, you could charge at home. So we're kind of back to that now, where we're looking at the issues with regard to gasoline transport, and pollution. There was a comment about gasoline generation. Electrical generation as opposed to transport. And yes, electricity is the transport method. But right now, electrical transport is something that we can do in some ways far more safely, forest fires aside, because we clearly have had issues with forest fires and electrical transport. But gas trucks moving what are basically rolling bombs around cities has never been a good idea. And recall recently we've had some train crashes that point out that moving hazardous chemicals in volume can be extremely problematic and can result in potentially mass casualty events. So that's the transport that we do better right now with energy. Though we never, back to the Tesla concept, we never really got to the wireless transport of energy that we wanted, though we're making progress. Currently, as was mentioned, Tesla's gone up to wireless charging, proximity inductive charging, something that was pioneered at scale by a company called Witricity a few years back, which allows you to drive your vehicle into your garage or into a parking space and have it charge without having to hook up a cable, which is pretty handy. My robotic snowblower and lawnmower has inductive charging, and that allows it to sit out, charge, you don't touch it, and it's always ready to go. The final comment with regard to the EVs, and I think this was also covered, is a lot of where we're seeing the advancement in autonomous driving isn't in vehicles at the moment, it's in farm equipment. And as I mentioned, I've got an autonomous snowblower lawnmower myself, and the nice thing about that, I wake up in the morning, I say, blow the snow on my really long driveway, and by the time I actually get up, the driveway's done. Where before I had to get all wrapped up in clothing and gloves and hats and go out and blow snow in the morning before the sun went up, and that just wasn't a ton of fun, and it was awful cold. Now the robot does it for me. And companies like John Deere pioneered the same thing for factories and for commercial farms. And I grew up on a farm, and one of the most boring jobs you'll ever have is driving a tractor up and down a field. And my old boss at IBM, he died doing that. A tree picked him up out of his tractor, dropped him behind I think it was a flail mower, and which sliced and diced him and killed him. Not a great way to go. And so these tractors are not only better in terms of your mental health because they're taking away from a job that's incredibly boring, but a lot safer, because when you're on a tractor and it's doing the same thing, it's just easy to doze off. It's easy to lose concentration, and it's really easy to have an accident where you could lose a limb or be fatal. And at the speeds the tractors are going, you're not really all that concerned about a high level of accuracy, because the tractors are moving at 3 miles per hour, 5 miles per hour max, and so that allows you to implement a fully autonomous system with a lot of the risks that you have with automobiles traveling at 60 to 70 miles per hour. So we're making progress. The progress is good, and right now I would argue the leadership in autonomous driving has moved from the U.S., which started it way back in the early 2000s. And we had tests that went before that, but that's really where we really started to see the viability of autonomous driving was in the 2000s, with projects from Volkswagen and some of the Intel projects for the DoD, which showcased incredible capabilities 2 decades ago. So recognize we're still at the very forefront of this. It's going to get better. It's going to get cheaper, as we're already seeing in China, and it's going to make us safer, not only on roads but in farms. And to a certain extent, the same kind of autonomous technology will make some of our appliances autonomous, and maybe someday we'll have autonomous robots helping us around the house, helping us with our gardening, And for those of us that are aging at the moment, that at least kind of implies we won't be totally tied to our homes and actually be able to get some stuff done. So it's great technology, and I'm actually looking forward to our autonomous robotic automotive future.
Thank you. This is excellent discussions, and I think that it will be helpful for transport industry. And beside that, from our World Talent Economic Forums, we are developing this Nikola Tesla Graduate School. So those who are interested to doing research, we are happy to work with you. Those who are interested to join as a faculty to train more innovative students and the communities, they can join in our forum. So thank you, Mr. Rob. Thank you, Mr. David Smith, and thank you, Mr. Allen, for your continuous support for World Talent Economic Forum. Thank you. Bye bye, and take care.